give it to me, and then I'll take it up to the mayor. Yep. I think that's fine, yeah. What's going on? Great, thank you.
I signed my name after before I signed it.
Oh, that's fine.
It releases
You're
my
okay.
alter ego.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one,
I can't find anything. Okay.
this one, 122. Denise wants that as a first reading, so I'm going to read it here rather than here.
That's the one that Don was going to move to suspend the rules.
It's okay. So these three numbers here are from last meeting,
Yeah.
and she needed to Denise. She is going to move to reconsider these three items under unfinished business, and then we're going to put them on next week's unfinished business, or next, not the 7th, the 14th. She'll vote, or she won't vote. She'll abstain.
So her motion tonight is going to be what?
Move to reconsider and place them on the May 14th.
And then which one, this one you're going to read, what are you going to do with this one?
You're going to flash it up on the screen. And I'm going to say it's been requested that this item be read as a first reading under the first reading section. And then we'll go on to the next one.
When I would go to movies with my parents when I was in high school, and if the movie started late,
This is on.
that doesn't encourage anybody to work faster.
Yeah, that's for the media. Yeah. Oh, 5 cents for sure. What kind of pen was it?
At Westfield, right next to Carmel. Where the
We'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. Welcome
So we stayed with her.
H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCVU as well as Cable Channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council microphones are open for roll call.
Mayor Artis.
Here.
Councilmember Akison. Here. Councilmember Sear. Councilmember Grayeb. Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Euler.
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Here.
Councilmember Ruckriegel.
Here.
And Councilmember Turner.
Present.
You have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. A notice was received by a member of the City Council in accordance with the rules established in Ordinance Number 16142, and the member will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the City Council physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made and seconded, then the request by the member to attend electronically shall be deemed approved by the City Council and the presiding officer, and shall declare the requesting member present. Councilmember Montalongo is on business, but he has telephoned in. And I'm seeing no objections, so Councilman Montalongo is considered present. At this time, I'd like everyone to please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we have several proclamations and a presentation all this evening before we start the regular business. And our first proclamation will be to the Bradley men's basketball team. Well, this is an exciting evening for the entire council, and I'm sure our listening and viewing audience as well. What an unbelievable season Coach Wardle and the Braves had, and what a great representation of the program that Coach Wardle is building up on the hill. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to read this proclamation and then ask the coach to come up and say a few words. Whereas the Bradley men's basketball team, under the direction of Coach Brian Wardle, claimed its first Missouri Valley Conference Tournament championship in 31 years with a 57-54 victory against Northern Iowa on March 10th, 2019. And whereas the Braves continued to overcome obstacles throughout the 18-19 campaign, which included becoming the first team in conference history to lose their first 4 games only to win the tournament and then overcome an 18-point deficit to win the largest comeback in title game history. And whereas the Braves then earned their first NCAA Division I tournament bid in 13 years, competing against the nation's fifth-ranked team and eventual Final Four participant Michigan State in the first round on March the 21st in Des Moines. And whereas the Braves featured 3 players to earn All-Valley honors, as Darryl Brown and Elijah Childs were both named to the all-conference teams, and Central Illinois' own Nate Kennel became the first Brave in school history to earn MVC's Sixth Man of the Year accolades. And whereas the Bradley team also championed in the classroom and had members that were named to the all-MVC Scholar Athlete teams. Now, therefore, I, Jim Artis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize the great scholastic work and historic achievements of the 2018-2019 Bradley University men's basketball team in Peoria, Illinois. So we all know how important Bradley University is to this community. We also know how much this community supports the basketball team and the other special teams up on the hill. We're going to be giving special recognition to another world-class speech team here very shortly as well. But tonight is for the men's basketball team. I know that we as a community are so excited and ready for Bradley to really excel, not just once every decade or so, but every year. And we know that when Coach Wardle came here, that's what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it. So this is really exciting. I do want to tip my hat to Dr. Reynolds, who's in the back, Peoria's own, and makes it extra special to have a native Peorian that's leading the men's team up there, and the athletic director doing such a great job. Dr. Reynolds, thank you very much for everything you've done. So with no further ado, I'd like to ask everyone to please welcome Coach Wardle, and anything you'd like to say, Coach, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for having us here. Well, I'll be real brief. Anything worthwhile is uphill. And I think as a program, we've done it the right way. We haven't cut any corners. We've taken no shortcuts. And we've done it with hard work. We've done it with teamwork, unselfishness, discipline. And I'm very, very proud of these young men. And after we won the conference tournament and got our NCAA bid, I got asked, what made this team happen? And I just said, these guys back here. And when I say these guys, it's my staff too. It's all these players, starting with our seniors on down, all the hard work, the sacrifice, the unselfishness, and staying together, having great communication, and having each other's back on and off the court has always been a big part of our program and a standard of our program. So I'm very, very proud of these guys. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited about what we continue to grow, we continue to develop, and where we can go as a program is exciting to me. And there's a lot of things out there we still got to accomplish, so we're working very hard right now. But this is an honor for all of us. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone here, for thinking of us, and hopefully we can get back to that dance a lot more often. Thanks a lot.
Next up, we have the National Sängerfest, German Society. Whereas the 63rd National Sanger Fest will be held from May 17th through the 19th at the Peoria Civic Center, hosted by the German American Central Society, this event will welcome 1,000 to 1,500 people from across the United States. And whereas the event is held at a different city every 3 years, the singers converged in Peoria for the first time in 2004 and had nothing but praise for the warm welcome they received. And whereas the German American Central Society has brought cultural events to Peoria since the 1800s, the city of Peoria continues to have a long relationship with Germany, which is most evident in our 42-year relationship with our sister city in Friedrichshafen. And whereas the main purpose of the German American Central Society is to share and promote the German culture through song, sports, food, and I'll let you pronounce that. Yeah, Gemütlichkeit. With the focus on German music. And whereas there will be approximately 1,000 singers participating in the mass concert on Saturday, May 18th, and the public is very welcome to attend. Now, therefore, I, Jim Artis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby celebrate the 63rd National Sanger Fest in Peoria, Illinois. Debbie and Mary are going to give us a little more information now.
Well, thank you, first of all, to the City of Peoria for the proclamation. We're excited for our National Sanger Fest coming up. We will have people from all over the country coming to Peoria starting May 16th through Sunday, May 19th, doing all kinds of different activities. Our main concert is Saturday, as the mayor was saying, Saturday, May 18th at the Civic Center, and tickets are available at the Civic Center box office, $10 only. It's a great deal. And you can come hear 800 to 1,000 singers all singing German cultural songs. So we're very excited about that. And I think that's all I have to say, right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Next is Skip the Straw Week. Whereas millions of straws are used in the United States per day, and whereas there are over 5.3 trillion pieces of plastic afloat in our rivers, lakes, and oceans, and whereas by the year 2050, it's forecast that there will be more plastics than fish in our rivers, lakes, and oceans. And whereas when single-use plastic straws are irresponsibly discarded, they pose an environmental hazard to the health, safety, and welfare of citizens of Peoria and end up in the landfill or our waterways, negatively impacting water quality and aquatic life. And whereas reusable straws and straws made of paper, plant, vegetables, and other natural materials are available and or are a more environmentally friendly alternative to plastic straws, and whereas April the 29th is the 27th annual Sun Foundation Clean Water Celebration, which will focus on the choices we make daily about single-use plastics and will challenge our citizens to choose to skip the single-use plastic straw or use alternative straws whenever available. Now, therefore, I, Jim Artis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby recognize April the 29th through May the 5th as Skip the Straw Week in Peoria, Illinois. We have several of our friends from the Sun Foundation here. I'm not sure who all is going to speak, but they want to give us a little bit more information. Welcome.
Thank you very much. We thank the Peoria City Council for their foresight and leadership in helping to reduce plastic pollution by supporting Skip the Straw. It's a nationwide program and paves the way to join other progressive communities across the country addressing the problem of plastics and debris. Here are some interesting facts. 5.3 trillion pieces of plastic float in our rivers, lakes, and oceans. Each year, 1 million seabirds die from ingesting plastic. Almost every piece of plastic ever produced is still out there somewhere in our planet, floating somewhere in our oceans or lying on the seabed, because not all plastics float. By 2050, there will be more plastic objects than fish in the oceans. So what are we going to do about it? Skip the Straw kickoff at Sun Foundation's Clean Water Celebration this coming week. Skip the Straw starts Monday, the 29th of April, and runs through May 5th. This is our second year for this weekly event. The goal is to decrease the use of single-use straws. It's easy to participate. Just say, no straw, please. Restaurants don't serve straws except on request. Over 50 restaurants, businesses, and schools are participating this year, pledging a total of over 4,000 days of skipping plastic straws. Individuals, schools, and businesses can take the pledge to use the plastic straws online. Peoria joins other cities for No Straw Days in Seattle, Washington, Miami, Fort Myers, Florida, and multiple cities in California that are banning plastic straws through legislation. Voluntary actions and legislation to ban plastic bags are taking place in our cities and cities in other countries. The Illinois American Water Company has been the Sun Foundation's prime sponsor for the Clean Water Celebration, the annual event, for 27 years. Trip Batten is the engineer manager for the Illinois American Water Company, and we thank Trip for his efforts to protect our natural water resources. Trip?
Got a lot of proclamations. We'll keep it quick here. Partnering with organizations like the Sun Foundation give us, as Illinois American Water, a unique opportunity to reach our youngest customers and future environmentalists. Our team truly enjoys sharing our passion, providing quality water to service to our friends and neighbors. We encourage everyone to come out to our event, the Clean Water Celebration. It's on Monday. It'll be over at the Civic Center to help celebrate our precious water resources. We thank you, the council, for being so progressive with the Skip the Straw Day. Thank you, everybody.
Next is Motorcycle Awareness Month. Whereas safety is the highest priority for the highways and streets of our city and state, and Illinois is proud to be a national leader in motorcycle safety, education, and awareness. And whereas motorcycles are a common and economical means of transportation that reduces fuel consumption and road wear and contributes a significant way to the relief of traffic and parking congestion. And whereas it is especially meaningful that the citizens of our city and state are aware of motorcycles on the roadways and recognize the importance of motorcycle safety. And whereas the members of a brotherhood aimed towards education, ABATE of Illinois, continually promote motorcycle safety, education, and awareness in high school drivers' education programs and to the general public, presenting motorcycle awareness programs to over 120,000 participants in Illinois over the past 5 years. And whereas the motorcyclists of Illinois have contributed extensive volunteerism and money to national and community charitable organizations. And whereas during the month of May, all roadway users should unite in the safe sharing of roadways within the city of Peoria and the state of Illinois. Now, therefore, I, Jamardis, Mayor of the city of Peoria, in recognition of 31 years of ABATE of Illinois, Inc., and over 676,000 registered motorcyclists statewide, and the continued role Illinois serves as a leader in motorcycle safety, education, and awareness, do hereby proclaim the month of May Motorcycle Awareness Month in Peoria, Illinois. I believe Mark Rossi, the president of ABATE, is going to say a few words, but I can tell you as a member of ABATE and a former avid motorcyclist, these guys do a ton of work in the community, in every community that they're in, not just Peoria. And many times we don't recognize that as much as we should, but they're very conscientious and safe drivers. They want other people to be as conscientious and safe as they are, but they also give back to their communities, not just by volunteering, but also by a lot of hard work and raising money for a lot of great charities. So these guys, that we owe them a special thanks, and I know the City Council is proud to recognize them in May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Peoria City Council. Mr. Mayor said it all. There's roughly 700,000 registered motorcycle riders in the state of Illinois. Weather's turning nice. The bikes are coming out. We're not trying to take over the roads, but we would like to share them with you, with the cars and trucks. Safety is probably our biggest aspect of ABATE. We are in the high schools, in the driver's ed, teaching classes. Although some of those students aren't old enough to be on the road with us, we want them to know that when they're driving their cars, that keep an eye out for us. We'll be keeping an eye on them. And, you know, if we all do our part, we'll all make it home at the end of the ride. So, thank you very much.
Susie Sockman with the Sterling Merit Day. Whereas the Rotary Clubs of Chillicothe, East Peoria, Farmington, Peoria Downtown, and Peoria North will honor graduates who have attained academic standing in the top 8% of their class in all the high schools in Peoria County and East Peoria at the 60th Sterling Merit Awards banquet. And whereas Rotary is proud to help build stronger communities by recognizing and rewarding outstanding performance and academic excellence, and encourage all students to continually search for quality in every endeavor. And whereas the Junior League of Peoria started the event in 1959 to recognize and reward the academic excellence of area high school seniors, in 1968, the Rotary Club of Peoria took over the banquet and later partnered with other Rotary clubs to include all of the high schools in Peoria County, plus East Peoria. Now, therefore, I, Jamardis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby proclaim May the 7th, 2019 as Sterling Merit Day in Peoria, Illinois. And the lady who wears so many hats in the community, which she really needs no introduction, but I will anyway, Susie Stockman.
There are probably several of you that are maybe Sterling Merit Award winners from the past, from the high school, since we've done it for 60 years, so welcome tonight. The Sterling Merit Awards Banquet is a program celebrating academic excellence, honoring the top 8% of high school graduates who have attained the highest standing in their classes. The banquet enhances the incentive for scholarship achievement through public recognition. The banquet will award medallions to 201 students this year from all high schools in Peoria County and East Peoria. It will also recognize all district superintendents and high school principals. The speaker at the banquet this year is Mr. Derek Booth, Director of Social and Emotional Learning at Peoria High School, Peoria Public Schools. The banquet is sponsored by the Rotary Clubs of Peoria, Chillicothe, East Peoria, Farmington, Peoria Downtown, and Peoria North. Rotary also partners with the Peoria Journal-Star that will feature a photo spread of all the students on May 5th, the Sunday before the banquet. Thank you for recognizing 60 years of the Sterling Merit Banquet.
Now we have a special presentation as the regular watchers and listeners of the Peoria City Council may have noticed over the winter months, and we had a brutal one this year. Councilwoman Akeson really took a lot of leadership in trying to come up with an initiative to recognize the folks that were doing their civic duty to make sure that the sidewalks were cleared so people would have an unobstructed ability to navigate through the city. So I would like to invite Councilwoman Akeson up. I thanked her when she came up with the idea. I think, again, she deserves our thanks and recognition for this. Coming up with this award, she's going to give us a little bit more information, and then I'll present the awards.
Thank you. I'm going to enlist the help of Sam Rivera, if you would stand up here to make sure that this gets teed up in time. As this is my last city council meeting, I thought it would be appropriate to end where I started, which was emphasizing the importance of quality of life in our city. And I've created a very short 1-minute video to tee up how you think about sidewalks when it snows. So that last image is the way we want our sidewalks to be. And in 2015, although not unanimously passed, the City Council now makes it a requirement that commercial businesses keep their sidewalks free of snow and ice. And as we all know, we still are working on compliance. That will be up to the next city councils. Now, residential streets are important too. They carry our children to school, they provide you access to commercial corridors, and we have no ordinance that requires residents to keep their sidewalks clear. That too will be the next step for our city council going forward. There are many cities across the nation that require sidewalks, all sidewalks, to be free and clear of snow. And in some communities, they get much more snow than we get, and it's handled differently. Some cities take it on as a budget item, and some cities require or rely on their citizens to take up the initiative. So in talking to my colleagues and to the mayor and to the city manager, I thought, what more can we do to offer the carrot instead of the stick to bring this to people's attention? And I know when the weather's really nice, although I guess last Sunday was a reminder that even in April we can have lots of snow. I thought, what a better way than to commend and recognize people who have gone above and beyond. There is one recipient who not only shovels his sidewalk, but he shovels over a half-mile of city public walkway. I'd like to turn the award portion of this presentation to Joe Doolin. He is the Assistant Director of Community Development. And if it hadn't been for his department taking the lead on this, I don't think I'd be standing up here being able to offer this award. Joe?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Would our award winners come up? If you got a call from West Springer today and the last week, come on up. I know that I see some of you out in the audience. So I just want to thank our staff members, Wes Springer and Josiah Williams. Before he left, he helped greatly with this. They both did a great job of spreading the word and getting the information out to the public. We received over 40 nominations of individual residents for the award, and we selected 2 from each council district and then a neighborhood association. So with that, we're going to announce the award winners. I'll call your name if you just step forward, and Wes will give you an award. First up is Norman Mine. Marguerite Gove. Marguerite, here. Lynn Carl and Mark Liebenow. Larry Barnett and family. Chris Adolson. Ryan Calhoun. Patrick Wilmington. And then we also had 2 other award winners who couldn't be here tonight, Joetta Gentry and Margaret Ritchie. And then the last award winner is the Uplands Neighborhood Association. So I'm going to put Mr. Summers on the spot a little bit because their neighborhood association does a wonderful job and really something that we're going to hopefully try to model in more neighborhoods throughout the year next year in the winter. So Mr. Summers, would you say a few words about your guys' project?
Thank you. Thank you to Councilmember Ickeson for making this award happen, and to the City Council and the Mayor and city staff. We just decided a couple of years ago, because of the reasons that Councilmember Akeson had pointed out, the importance of having sidewalks for children to walk to school and people to walk to work, and for those who are disabled or elderly, or all kinds of people that are pedestrians and that don't have the option of driving a car, that they should be able to get around without putting themselves in danger by having to walk in the street. We decided to take on, as a neighborhood, an effort to clear the sidewalks of snow in the winter by all pitching in and hiring a contractor to do it. And so I just wanted to thank our contractor, which is Blunier Builders. They did a great job, especially this year. I have to tell you that we had that huge snowfall, and we do all of the streets in the uplands, which includes Main Street, and a lot of the snow from Maine, all the snow from Maine, gets piled up on the sidewalks. And so you can just imagine what kind of a massive iceberg it is, and they got that cleared off. I don't know how they did it, but it was amazing. They got all of that snow cleared off the sidewalks for us, and so they did a great job. And I also want to thank our fundraiser, who couldn't be here tonight, sadly, but Pete Moxig and his wife did a great job of putting up signs that were like the Burma Shave signs in the neighborhood and getting people excited about the project, and going door to door and having a flyer posse that they send out there to raise funds. And we were able to raise all of the money that we needed to make it happen both years that we've done it. And I'd also like to thank the board members. I have J.R. Hinchy up here, and Dustin Dragist, and then the board members who couldn't be here, Meredith Messina and Steve Tyler. I knew his name, sorry. Sorry, Steve, if you're watching. I'd like to thank them for their support as well. And it's important that we make the sidewalks clear for those who need to use them. So I think it's important work, and it's something that makes me very proud to be a part of a neighborhood that's willing to pitch in and do that for all of its residents. And it just shows why it's so great to live in this area. Thank you very much.
So I apologize, I forgot one name, Brian Borali. He was on my list, I promise. I missed. Sorry. So I just want to thank all of our award winners. We're hoping to continue this forward next year too, so be on the lookout for those in your neighborhood that are doing an excellent job keeping the sidewalks clear. And then we'll release the nomination forms a little earlier next year in October, so hopefully you have 3 or 4 months to see what's going on. And hopefully we don't have any more snow this year. Right, Bill? All right, thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, move to approve the minutes of the joint City Council and Town Board proceeding held on April 9, 2019 as printed.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We're at the consent agenda. 19-113 is a communication from the city manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve and authorize a settlement of Mary Petrakis' claim in the amount of $50,000. 19-114 is a communication with a request for the following. A is to approve the purchase of pavement marking material in the amount of $191,050 from Enos Paint, company utilizing the state of Minnesota's Department of Transportation joint purchasing contract. B is to approve the purchase of Type B highway pavement marking glass beads from Potter's Industries in the amount of $30,536. And C is to approve the sole source purchase of Type 4 pavement marking glass beads from Potter's Industry in the total amount of $56,320. Item 19-115 has a handout on yellow on your desk. It's a request to approve a purchase of 2 Unimac UW45 gear extractors, 1 Unimac UW65 gear extractor, and 2 Unimac PPE drying cabinets from Washburn Machinery Incorporated through the Assistance to the Firefighters Grant Award. 19-116 is a request to approve the contract for landscape stewardship and maintenance project with Jimax Landscape in the total amount not to exceed $150,000, which includes up to $120,000 for labor and equipment and up to $30,000 for materials. 19-117 is a request to approve a new lease agreement with the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission for a 5-year period from August 2019 for a portion of property located at 456 Fulton Street, Suite 401, and a portion of Suite 405, and authorize the city manager to negotiate the final terms and execute the document. 19-100 is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance amending Appendix A, the Unified Development Code relating to handicap accessible parking. 19-118 is a request to adopt an ordinance reserving 2019 private activity bond volume cap in the amount of $11,852,715. 19-119 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending the Peoria Urban Enterprise Zone to include Galena Road Industrial Park, Villa Bordeaux Apartment Complex, the former IDOT site, Big Shots, and Hunt's Drive-In, as outlined with their addresses. 19-120 is a request to adopt an ordinance to vacate the 20-foot wide alley in several subdivisions, but generally known as 2210 East Grandview Avenue and 2211 East Reservoir Boulevard. 19-121 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending the City of Peoria 2019 revised budget relating to the use of South Village TIF fund balance in the amount of $35,000 and the use of the Eagle View TIF fund balance in the amount of $15,000 to provide funding for studies, surveys, plans, and professional services. 19-122 is an ordinance, but it has been requested that it be read under first reading, so we will be reading that one just a little bit later. 19-123 is a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol at Cityscape Catering Corporation, DBA Dax Smokehouse, 1200 West Main, Store 11, contingent upon compliance with all building code requirements with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. 19-124 is a request to approve the site application for a Class C packaged goods liquor license with the retail sale of alcohol on the premises at Benny's Beverage Depot, 2601 West Lake, Suite A1-B. Contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. 19-125 is an appointment by Mayor Artis to the Construction Commission with a request to concur of Jason Snyder. 19-126 is the appointment by Mayor Artis to the Peoria Area Convention and Visitors Bureau with a request to concur of Susan Grebner. 19-127 is an appointment by Mayor Artis to the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District Board of Trustees with a request to concur of Council Member Beth Jensen. 19-128 is communication from the City Manager, City Treasurer, and the Finance Director with a request to receive and file the month ended March 31st, 2019 unaudited financial report. That completes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any items to remove from consent this evening? Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 19 19116, please.
19116. Okay. Any other items to remove from consent? I'm seeing no lights. We have a motion to approve the remaining items by Councilmember Sear, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
116 is the contract for landscape stewardship and maintenance project with GIMAX.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore?
I just pulled the item so that I could abstain from the vote. I have a appearance of conflict. They are a donor to my nonprofit organization.
Okay, thank you. So noted. Councilmember Ruckriegel, motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Is there discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimously with one abstention. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have a presentation. 19-129 is a communication from the city manager with a request to receive and file a presentation by Arts Partners.
Okay. We have Jen Gordon, the Executive Director for the Arts Partners, with us this evening. Welcome. You want to speak from the podium, or would you like a cordless mic so you can... Okay. All right.
Mayor, artists, and members of the Peoria City Council, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to briefly share with you more about Arts Partners and our work to build awareness and strengthen the arts for the cultural and economic enrichment of Central Illinois. My name is Jen Gordon, and it's my privilege to serve as Executive Director for this organization. Since 1999, Arts Partners has worked to become a one-stop source for arts information in our community, connecting people with events and opportunities and celebrating and supporting the arts organizations, venues, and artists that so greatly contribute to our cultural identity and quality of life here in Central Illinois. We're a non-for-profit tax-exempt organization that's governed and supported by a brilliant board of directors. I'm privileged to have our board president here with us tonight, as well as another board member. And our board is very, very committed and passionate about the programs that we serve. And behind each of the programs that we do at Arts Partners, there is a team of board members that help to execute it. Our programs are designed to expand and encourage opportunities for public participation in the arts, as well as to provide networking and professional development opportunities for artists and arts groups. So why is it important that we do this work? Well, we believe that a thriving arts scene is integral to our local economy and culture. Here in the greater Peoria region, we have over 180 local arts groups and organizations. And these artists and organizations are not just contributing to our quality of life, but they're helping us drive our economy as well. We must always remember that the fundamental benefits of the arts are important. They inspire, delight, and unite us. At Arts Partners, we stipulate those benefits and challenge all of us to think of Peoria arts as an industry, one that supports jobs, generates government revenue, and promotes tourism. In Illinois, the nonprofit arts and cultural sector is a $4 billion industry, supporting the equivalent of 111,000 full-time jobs, generating $478 million in local and state government tax revenue. These figures change the conversation about the arts from that of a charity to one about an investment in industry that provides both cultural and economic benefits. The total economic activity of the nonprofit arts sector in the greater Peoria area is $20.4 million. These organizations here locally annually spend an estimated $14.8 million. These are businesses that employ people locally, purchase goods and services within the community, and are members of our Chamber of Commerce and involved in marketing and promoting our region here in Central Illinois. And did I mention we also generate $2.2 million in local and state government revenue. Now, as we look at the greater Peoria arts spending, like all industries, spending by these organizations has a measurable impact. However, unlike most industries, the Peoria arts scene generates a bounty of related spending for local businesses, dollars that stay local. Of the $20.4 million generated, the remaining $5.6 million comes from event-related spending by their audiences. So practically speaking, this means that for every ticket purchased to an arts event, an additional $16 goes back into our local economy. And this could be in the form of local transportation, souvenir gift items, clothing, lodging, childcare, meals, snacks, etc. And there's never a shortage of opportunities to participate and enjoy the arts community here in Central Illinois. We have over 5,000 arts and cultural events taking place annually. And Peoria has a long legacy of excellence from our Peoria Players Theater, which this year has celebrated its 100th anniversary, which is also the longest consecutively operating community theater in the state of Illinois, to the Peoria Symphony Orchestra, which is going to be finishing up its 121st season on Saturday night. And I encourage you to get your tickets to their concert coming up here. But not only do we have a legacy of excellence, we also see new growth in our arts community. And just this past year alone, we've seen new organizations like Big Picture emerge, as well as Black Metal Dog Arts and Artists Re-envisioning Tomorrow. And it's really an exciting time for the Peoria arts community here. And at Arts Partners, we work every day publicizing and promoting these opportunities and trying to get everyone in the community really connected with the arts experience that we offer here in Peoria. Supporting Peoria arts not only improves our quality of life and culture, but it is undeniably a sound investment in our local economy. And at Arts Partners, we appreciate the city's investment in the arts. The support we receive from the city of Peoria is invaluable, allowing us to concentrate our efforts on seamlessly promoting the arts and increasing participation in the arts community through our programs and services. Your support contributes to 64% of our annual budget, and we take your investment seriously and build upon it, with 36% of funding additionally generated through grants, program sponsors, and private donations and event revenue. Through building upon your foundational partnership, we've been able to extend our impact through programs and services designed to connect and encourage public engagement in the arts. Our motto at Arts Partners is follow your arts and get connected to the arts community. And weekly we work on getting the word out about everything from ballet performances to pottery throwing opportunities. And we do that. We have some really fun stats that we can share with you on a weekly basis. We serve about 8,000 people through radio listeners and e-communications. On a monthly basis, we're reaching about 27,000 through social media promotions and web traffic. And on an annual basis, we're promoting 5,000 plus local arts and cultural events that are supported by 180 different local arts organizations. You might be familiar with some of our programs. Art Pop is now in its 5th year, and this is a vehicle that we're really excited to continue in this community through a special partnership with Adams Outdoor Advertising. And these billboards that display the work of local artists receive 19 million views annually. It's a $35,000 promotional value per artist. And since we started this program, we've been able to promote the work of 26 local artists. In the words of one of our 2019 winners, Natalie Jackson O'Neill, I'm very excited to be part of a program that inspires our local communities by promoting public artwork. The art scene in Peoria continues to thrive, and I never imagined my artwork being viewed on such a large scale. And we're also very excited to continue to offer Sculpture Walk Peoria in this region. Sculpture Walks have emerged across cities in the country as an effective vehicle for transforming and revitalizing communities. And since 2015, Sculpture Walk has featured 63 sculptures along Washington Street, reaching 8,000 youth on and off the walk and engaging nearly 4,000 people through public tours and events. And speaking of events, we're looking forward to our opening this year on May 18th, where we will be bringing in a new class of sculpture that will remain on Washington Street through March of 2020. This was the fourth year that we were able to continue our program, The Business of Art. And The Business of Art is a one-day conference that's through a partnership with the Small Business Development Center at Bradley University. And this is a program that's designed to really equip entrepreneurial-minded artists in this region for success. This year we were able to serve 115 attendees from 19 counties, so we're starting to see our reach expand beyond just Peoria proper to really draw artists from the surrounding regions. We have over 20 partners and collaborators that help make this program possible. And this year we were able to offer 23 unique sessions, everything ranging from music industry advice to self-publishing advice for writers and how to do your taxes and more. And then, of course, we're really excited that we're going to be presenting Ignite Peoria. This is actually going to be the 6th year, coming up actually on August 10th of 2019. It's going to return to the Peoria Civic Center. And this is really a culmination of everything that we do at Arts Partners. It hinges upon the participation of over 100 arts organizations and local artists. And these are individuals who partner with us to provide a hands-on, free experience for everyone in our community to come in and experience the arts community. We have over 28 live performances, 7 workshops where people can come in and just experience everything from belly dancing to learning how to write a short story to clogging and much more. We also know that this is a proven vehicle that really does strengthen local arts organizations, that provides them with the opportunity to build new audiences. It generates sales for their new members as well as season ticket subscribers. And we also have heard back from organizations that it increases the attendees that they have in student classes throughout the year. Last year we had 4,000 people attend, and this year, as a new addition to Ignite Peoria, we're expanding on it, and we're really excited to be offering Sensory Ignite, which is going to be a section of the festival that focuses on serving individuals with autism and sensory sensitivities. So we'll be really excited to see that portion of the program grow. And just in conclusion, I want to thank you once again on behalf of the Board of Directors and the scores of volunteers and supporters and donors behind Arts Partners for the city's continued support and recognition of the value of the arts here in Central Illinois. We appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Gordon while she's here? Okay. Jen, thank you for coming down. We appreciate the presentation. Thank you. We have a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Jensen, seconded by Councilmember Euler. If there's no further discussion, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
And that motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We're at first readings, and we will read the one that was listed under the consent agenda first. 19-122 is a request to adopt, a first reading on an ordinance amending Chapter 17 of the Code of the City of Peoria.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're going to have Director Black speak to this issue? No? Well, I can speak to it. So, this is an ordinance that we are seeking to change currently the way the Fair Employment and Housing Commission is established. I lost my mic. Currently, the Employment and Housing Commission has been viewed by some as not even existing, and to others as being ineffective. As most of you know, I've been selected by the National League of Cities to represent the state of Illinois on an affordable housing on the affordable housing task force, which is looking at the housing crisis that is permeating throughout our country. And here in Peoria, it is a real issue in some of our communities where decent affordable housing is the theme. We may have housing in some areas that are not affordable because they are priced out of range, and it's all the way you look at it sometimes. There are some members of our community that have no problems paying for housing anywhere in the city, and for some of them, they don't believe that there is affordable housing crisis because they can afford to live wherever they want to live. But we have a large segment of our community that have very low incomes, cannot afford to live wherever they want to live, and where they can afford to live oftentimes is not as decent as it could be. And so to that end, my goal is to split the Fair Employment and Housing Commission into a Fair Employment Commission and a Fair Housing Commission. Tonight, there are no changes to the ordinance. The ordinance as it is today will be the same as when, if you decide to allow this commission to split into two. There's no changes. Everybody who are on the commission can serve out their terms on the commission and apply once their term is over for one or the other. But tonight there are no changes. What this will do, however, is give more emphasis to fair housing and more emphasis to fair employment. For example, there are many things in the ordinance today that many serving on the Fair Employment and Housing Commission had no idea that they were empowered to do. And this will allow them to focus on one area. In fact, I had established two committees, one fair employment and one fair housing, to talk about what this looks like, what they thought about it. And these committees included current members of the Fair Employment and Housing Commission. And all the ones who have attended those meetings are in full agreement with this split. And they've already started deciding which way that they wanted to go, which commission that they wanted to serve on. So that's wonderful that those people who are currently serving, who have spoken to me about it, are in support. And so with that, there are any questions? The goal is to bring this back for a vote. As I indicated, nothing is changing. It's going to read a week from now and a month from now the way it reads today. And once those commissions are constituted, it would be up to them to decide how to run their commission based upon what the ordinance say going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for either Councilwoman Moore or staff on this first reading? Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I welcome this idea that Councilwoman Moore's brought forth. And she and I briefly have discussed thoughts, and it's related to this. I think it would be helpful, and I don't know the history of why we no longer have a housing commission, but we just have this fair housing commission, but we haven't, since I've been back on the council, had a housing commission, and that commission used to oversee all of the housing issues, any code changes, the rental inspection program, and a number of other things. Ross can give us maybe the history of it. I was actually the legal counsel to it for a number of years. But I think it would be helpful to reinstitute that commission. And the way that I read this ordinance is just limited to fair housing issues, not the overbroad things that I'm talking about.
Councilman Moore?
So let me be clear. This commission on housing is going to look at the total scope of housing in its totality, from the 1st District through the 5th District. Anything that relates to housing, this commission is going to be looking at. And if you look at the Fair Employment and Housing Commission, it would sound, based upon your description, that those roles were folded into this Fair Employment and Housing Commission, from what I've read. But there's not been the stretch of the members to do that. And in fact, on the committees when we've met, my goal is for these commissions to be more proactive Right now, the Fair Employment and Housing Commission ordinance seems to be more reactive. And I would like for them to be more proactive when we're talking about rental registrations, when we're talking about anything that impacts housing, the whole global issue of housing, what you're saying, that is exactly what I envision this group doing. The committees and the folks who are currently on the Fair Employment and Housing Commission also have taken that charge on. But what they will need to do once these commissions are constituted is go back in to the current ordinance and add those elements, because right now the ordinance doesn't empower them in the global manner in which you're speaking, but that is exactly what the goal is.
Councilman Jensen?
Yeah, and I think that's a great goal, and I think that's what we should have as a housing commission. So I guess what I would suggest, because the way the ordinance is written, it's not written to include all of those things. I don't know if there's time to add that, if we could go back and look at the previous ordinance that established the housing commission that we used to have, that was in place for a number of years. I think that would be helpful, because the ordinance that we're reviewing right now doesn't include all of those other things that you're talking about. And I think that's important, that we have a commission and a body that does have those discussions and comes up with recommendations with regards to our housing programs and our code enforcement the way that it used to be done. So I guess that would be my suggestion, is to have it come back for the second reading in a more broader scope, and maybe call it just the Housing Commission, not the Fair Housing Commission, because I think it's going to deal with issues, not just discrimination issues in affordable housing, but it's going to include a number of other issues related to housing and code enforcement.
Mr. Leist?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Certainly, we can do that pursuant to, if that's the council's direction. We can broaden the scope if you like, and if there's language that you suggest, or you indicated that you are counsel to that commission for a period of time, I'd be glad to take a look at that, or I'll be willing to work with other staff. But that's something, if that's the council's wish, we can do that at the next reading.
Council Moore's toast, because she's bringing this forward, and we haven't had a chance to really talk about it in depth. But I think that would meet. It would cover what you're talking about doing.
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I don't have any objection. That's exactly what we're going to do anyway. We are going to do everything you just said. I just thought it would be better for the folks who constitute the commission to actually have some input. But if you would rather the city council dictate to them versus them having input, and then the other council members agree, then we were going to do that anyway. But I thought it would be nice to have regular citizens who would be on the commission also have an opportunity to have input. But everything you said is exactly what we were planning to do anyway, so I don't have any objection to that.
Anyone else with input on this item? If not, we would accept a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Moore, seconded by Councilmember Turner. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
The next first reading is 19-130, is a request for a first reading review of an ordinance amending Appendix A relating to off-street parking schedule and overparked impact fee.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This first reading before you modifies the zoning requirements related to parking. As you will probably remember, back in 2014, the City Council eliminated virtually all minimum parking requirements for non-residential development. At that time, what the council did is effectively flip the minimum to make it a maximum parking requirement for the impact of trying to reduce the amount of impervious surface within the community. Since that time, obviously, the stormwater utility fee has been adopted, which effectively has the same impact. And the discussion back in 2014 was that in anticipation of the stormwater utility fee, that once it was adopted, the maximum requirement would be eliminated, and therefore that's what is before you this evening.
Councilmember Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve.
Motion to receive and file, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Discussion or questions on this item? Seeing no lights, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo,
Thank you, Mayor. I vote yes.
and that motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk. 19-131 is a request for a first reading review of an ordinance amending Appendix A relating to buildable area in the Class CN Neighborhood Commercial District. Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This item relates only to the CN commercial districts, the neighborhood commercial districts, which are the smallest scale of all of the commercial areas in the city. The CN standards effectively prohibit any buildings greater than 15,000 square feet within these districts because they are typically for walkable neighborhood type development. The challenge here is that if someone came along with a building that was greater than 15,000 square feet, it would be very difficult for them to build that building. They would either have to try and rezone the parcel, which would be problematic, or they would have to request a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they would have to show a hardship in order to get that variance. All this does is it allows buildings that are greater than 15,000 square feet to be approved through the special use process. So effectively what would happen is if someone has a building, a larger scale building, they could go through a public hearing process, through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then to City Council for approval. And what this would allow, as with any special use, is that the council could condition the approval in such a way as to protect the smaller scale design of the CN district.
Questions for Director Black? Councilmember Moore.
I move to receive and file.
A motion to receive and file, seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Any discussion or questions for staff? Seeing or hearing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
I vote yes.
And that motion, oops, I missed Councilmember Akison. Is that an affirmative? It's already locked out. Councilmember Akison should be noted as a yes, and the motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk. 19-132 is a request for a first reading review of an ordinance amending Appendix A relating to solar utility facilities. Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This first reading is related to solar-powered devices and generators. As you will remember from a couple of weeks ago, RLI was approved for a solar-powered array on their campus up on Lindbergh and Bird Boulevard. And that was possible because the RLI campus is already a special use. And so that was an amendment to the special use. The challenge that we have within the existing ordinance is that there was no contemplation of larger solar-powered facilities the last time we wrote the zoning ordinance. So this is effectively regulations trying to catch up with technology. And what this would allow is for solar utility facilities to be either permitted uses in the large commercial and industrial districts or special uses in the residential districts. And it would also allow for the smaller sort of backyard solar utility devices in residential districts and smaller districts.
Questions for Director Black? Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is great. I like to see this coming forward. I have a couple questions right now. If residential properties have solar facilities, are they just not in compliance with our codes, or? Or how did they have to come and get permission, or I'm just curious?
So, Councilwoman, as it stands right now, the definitions that we have put in here, these are really just for ground-mounted solar facilities. So right now and for years, people have been putting solar panels on their roofs. That's fine, and we've always permitted that as long as we get the appropriate electrical drawings and that the roof can carry the load of the solar panels. That's fine. These are freestanding. So the difference we make is that someone can have a solar utility device which is generating power for their property, and that's separate from a large-scale solar facility utility, which is basically generating power that goes back out into the grid. And we have definitions on the last page of the ordinance that create that distinction.
So as a follow-up, so this will allow as a special use for what you called the manufacturing facilities in residential?
This would allow for the solar utility facilities as a special use in residential. So there could be a situation where there was a large undeveloped residential area.
Okay.
And it would have to be, I mean, we're not talking about individual typical single family lots. This would be several acres, probably 10, 15, 20 acres of land that happens to be zoned residential, because almost all properties that are annexed into the city come in as residential properties. And so if somebody wanted to put some type of solar powered array on that 10 acres of residential, then they would have to come through the special use process because of the potential impact on anything that would be around it.
And then for the listening audience, can you remind everybody what a special use entails? So if somebody did want to do this in a residential neighborhood, what they would have to go through to get the approval?
Sure. Any special use application, we notify all of the property owners in proximity to the site. We put up the large yellow public notice signs around the perimeter of the property. We do notices on social media and in the newspaper. There's a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission where the public can provide comment, and then the item would come to the City Council for final decision.
As a follow-up, is that what most other local government cities and counties are doing for these types of facilities in residential areas?
Yes, we've found that for cities, that's a typical approach. Counties are a little bit different because they're generally dealing with large-scale undeveloped land.
Ordinance based on any other city's ordinance, or?
Yes, we looked at various other cities. I don't have the list right in front of me, but we always look at other cities in terms of what they've adopted to see what we can borrow from them.
Have you had any requests for any solar facilities or solar farms in residential areas, or inquiries?
We have not in residential areas at this time. We have seen an uptick in commercial and industrial areas, and my sense is that will continue, particularly as long as the state continues to look at providing incentives for the development of solar power.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Akeson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you anticipate there being a minimum acreage that would be largely acceptable or approved in a residential neighborhood? I mean, for instance, I'm thinking about just my home. You know, my house is on 2.5 acres, but I would imagine my neighbors would be not happy if they learned that I was going to put a major solar installation in my front yard, which I have plenty of space to do so. I think we ought to tread very. I think there should be lots of images. The next time this is brought forward, I won't be here, but I can just imagine that. And I would love to see the list of other communities that do this. I know that in Vermont, it's very common, but it's you have lots and lots of rolling acres, and there's sections of Michigan where lots and lots of rolling acres in Maryland, the same thing. But, on Moss Avenue, do you want to see solar panels occupying the entire front yard of I just think that you ought to be thinking about, be careful what you wish for. And especially considering if the country's going to go nuclear, green, nuclear, fourth generation nuclear, solar may be completely passé by the time that comes around. I don't know. It's kind of frightening to think what the city would end up looking like. And you're not talking about big windmills being installed in the knolls, right?
No, at this point.
Don't laugh, because I can see this becoming like somebody comes up with an idea and then you kind of back yourself in a corner and say, how do we prevent this?
No, I'm absolutely not. Right now, small wind devices are permitted within the ordinance. I don't believe anyone has ever applied for one because they don't make any sense. But it's permitted. I think it's a very valid point in terms of setting a minimum acreage for residential properties, and we'll take a look at that in terms of what other communities have done. I mean, in discussing this with other communities and some solar power companies, they generally peg around 15 acres as the minimum that would be required to make it even worthwhile. So we'll go back and look at that and try and put a minimum acreage in there for residential development.
Okay. Councilmember Regenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great discussion and helps keep us a little bit more on the edge than we oftentimes are. So thank you for bringing it forward. And I think, Director Black, you're hitting a good balance here with the special use aspect of it. And as Councilwoman Jensen asked, we want to make sure folks understand that the special use process allows for more public input than on a case-by-case basis, and that it really addresses the concerns of a specific situation. So it can be tightened up as well as customized to make sure that the concerns of the nearby constituents are addressed. But I look forward to hearing a little more detail on what other communities has done as well. But I think the special use is a really valuable tool for us, especially in situations like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional input or questions for staff? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive and file by Councilmember Moore, seconded by Councilmember Regenbach. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
And that motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
19-133 is a request for a first reading review of an ordinance amending Appendix A relating to administrative deviations for wall signs.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This is probably the shortest amendment that I can remember bringing before you. It removes exactly one word from the existing ordinance. So right now there's the ability for administrative deviation or variance, if you will, for signs, for wall signs on buildings, but only on one-story buildings. And so what we are simply asking here is to remove, I guess it's two words, maybe it's a compound word, one story from the ordinance, so that administratively, if somebody comes in and says, I would like to place a sign that's not between 12 and 18 feet because of the type of building that I have, even though it's a two-story building or a three-story building, that administratively we can look at that rather than the process right now, which is actually a special use. So if somebody wants to move a sign 1 foot below that 12-foot line because perhaps the facade of the building doesn't allow the sign to be there, they have to pay $750, go through the public hearing process, and then come to the city council in order to drop that sign down 1 or 2 feet. And all this would do is allow that decision to be made at an administrative level.
This question for Director Black. Councilman Ruckriver.
Thank you. And thank you for your work on this. I think this actually will make things go a lot smoother. We had, I think, some questions from some sign companies that called me today, and I think actually with your explanation there, they will find that process is going to actually be a little bit easier for them as well. Just in trying to be able to maybe set up a meeting prior to the second reading with them, would you have a problem if we would push this off 2 meetings just to be able to fill our second meeting for approval? I don't think that there's going to be any changes coming forward, but I think the communication with a couple of the sign companies may make things a little bit easier. And that also may drive some pictures that might be able to give some sort of placement ideas as well, if that'd be okay with you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we have a motion to receive and file. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Ruckrill.
Yep. Motion to receive and file coming back, not our next regular scheduled meeting, but I think that'll be May 28th.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Euler. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
I vote yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at regular business. 19-134 is a request to approve a budget amendment number 1 to the Allen Road and Willow Knolls Road reconstruction project in the amount of $128,321 for a total budget amount of $3,728,321 for the construction project pending Peoria County Board concurrence.
Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve.
Motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Ruckriegel. Discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Item 19-135, and there is a replacement agreement on your desk in yellow. This is a request to approve a redevelopment agreement and parking deck lease with OSF Healthcare System and 124 Southwest Adams Property Holding.
Thank you. So I think what the arrangement is going to be, we'll put a motion on the floor. We'll have some discussion from Representative Spain representing OSF, and then any discussion by the city manager will go over the points of the redevelopment agreement, correct? Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Regenbach. Now it's we'd like to recognize our former colleague, our current state representative, but here tonight in the capacity of Vice President for Economic Development at OSF, Mr. Spain.
I always wondered why these mics didn't work right off the bat. It's a user error issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council. My name is Ryan Spain, here representing OSF Healthcare System. It's a pleasure to be back at City Council and being here for such an important council meeting tonight. I want to make sure that I'm sensitive to your time, but we thought it would be helpful both for the council that has been so engaged and helpful and deliberative and working hard on this project now for several years, but especially for the public to give an idea of what we're talking about with a great opportunity for downtown Peoria on behalf of OSF Healthcare. Good. The slide deck is working. I thought it would be helpful to just start with taking a step back because as Peorians, we're all familiar with OSF, and when we think about OSF healthcare, we're usually thinking about St. Francis Medical Center here in Peoria. And as a great medical center, that certainly makes sense. But OSF healthcare system is really a much larger entity. And tonight, as we consider the opportunity for an important new headquarters property for OSF, it's just an important reference point to think about how OSF has continued to grow and become much larger than just what we know here in Peoria. OSF really is now one of the largest integrated healthcare delivery systems in the entire Midwest, with more than 22,000 employees or OSF mission partners now performing services throughout 13 different hospitals and more than 150 different clinical sites. It's an incredible organization, but as we all know, the organization has its roots and continues to be a fixture right here in Peoria. And as we're standing here in a historic city hall built in the 1890s, as we're talking about a building that was constructed in the early 1900s, it's an important reminder that this organization and this group of sisters, the Third Order of St. Francis, our OSF sisters, have been working in this community now for more than 140 years. And their commitment to Peoria is really the reason that we're here talking about a project opportunity today. And I can tell you that the discussion to consider an OSF healthcare ministry headquarters in downtown Peoria really began more than 2 years ago. And it began in February of 2017 at a very difficult moment for our community. And these sisters, our OSF sisters, have really been called to serve those that are in need. And we usually think about that as patients and their families that are in need. But in the case of Peoria, this was a moment where our community was greatly in need and facing very significant uncertainty. And so the opportunity to think about how we take a new step forward for downtown Peoria emerged over 2 years ago with a special building. And the building is this one, a 1905 department store building created in downtown Peoria as the first steel skyscraper in Peoria. It's a 7-story building, but in 1905, it was a major undertaking in our community with over 250,000 square feet of retail space in downtown Peoria at the corner of Adams and Fulton. This is a picture from the 1950s. The building opened originally as the Shipper and Block building and operated that way for a couple of years before being converted to the Block and Cool department store building, the big white store as it was known throughout most of its history. And this big white store was an important fixture in the downtown Peoria retail scene for a number of years. This is one of my favorite pictures of the building, and Councilman Turner, you would appreciate this was part of the Memorial Day festivities of the time before we had the Gateway building and your leadership downtown on the riverfront. But the Block and Cool building would host a gigantic American flag in recognition and tribute for Memorial Day activities. The building is an incredible building. It's beautiful under there, but it's gone through many different phases and changes throughout the years. This is one of my favorite pictures of the building. This is one of my least favorite, as the building was converted in the 1960s and 70s to the Carson Peary Scott department store. But you can see what changed with the outer facade, and the windows were removed, and a new cladding system was installed on the outside of the building, and many changes took place. Today, we know the building most recently as the Chase Bank building, as it was converted in the mid-70s to a bank building as the anchor tenant on the ground floor with leasable office spaces for multi-tenants up above. So this is what the building looks like today. In January 2018, OSF Healthcare announced its intention to redevelop this building as a new corporate headquarters site. And certainly OSF was not in need of developing a new corporate headquarters, but thought that it was important as the community looked to turn the corner and make sure that we maximize the potential of how downtown Peoria continued to move forward. So the project was announced with an expected price tag of $89 million. And anywhere from 600 to 800 OSF employees, OSF mission partners that would be located within the building. The Peoria City Council has been intimately involved, and endless thanks go to the mayor and the city council for your work on making the historic rehabilitation program, the use of historic tax credits, possible for this building, without which the project would not be able to move forward. So the city took the leading role in developing a new historic district for downtown Peoria in the Central Business District, really a perfect companion to our earlier work to develop the Warehouse Historic District. And so that district enabled this building to qualify for historic rehabilitation tax credits. But that's just the start of the story, because there's a lot of work entailed and a lot of oversight and opinions and assistance that comes through any use of this program with other agencies. And so there is a state of Illinois component, and you see on the screen that part of the effort included submitting plans to the Illinois SHPO. SHPO stands for the State Historic Preservation Office. And they've been very excellent to work with and supportive of not just this project, but many of our work as a community within the field of historic preservation. But there is a third piece of review and oversight, which is the federal government. And the Department of Interior actually manages the historic rehabilitation program, and the National Park Service specifically is involved with providing approval for any final plans for redevelopment of these historic buildings. And that's why where we have experienced some delays as we go forward. And you can see on the screen that in October of last year, plans were submitted to the National Park Service, giving early indication of what the redevelopment plans of this historic building would look like. The government wanted more information and placed the project on hold in November 2018. And in the process of actually responding back and providing further information, mostly about the interior build-out for the Block and Cool building, we experienced a pretty significant shutdown of the federal government, where the employees charged with reviewing these activities became unavailable for close to 6 weeks' time. So in February of this year, we finally received an approval, a conditional approval from the National Park Service to proceed with the project. And since that time, we've been working earnestly with the design team and with the city council and specifically with the city manager. Now that we know that the project is viable and has received permission from the federal government to move forward, that it's now time to move things along. This photo shows you some of the work that we've done so far. It's just one view of many that you could see if you had an opportunity to go through the building. The building retains many of the historic conditions from its origination in 1905, but the building has been chopped up for years in small subdivided offices. If you go through the building now, every floor is opened up. The particle board walls are removed. The historic items have been retained for preservation. And this building that has been partitioned off for decades now is opened up and on full display for how it may have looked back in the old days as large open space for a department store. And it's truly remarkable to see what has happened inside the building. So the interior demolition, the clearing out of the non-historic items has been completed. That was finished in December of 2018. And then we have been on hold, waiting for permission to move the project along with a need for urgency, because the need to begin next phase construction activities for this project is very urgent, because some of the historic items for a building like this require such a long lead time that the ability to finish this work within this construction season to, for example, install the new windows and close the building up so that work could take place throughout the winter seasons is right before us. So there's tremendous urgency to move this forward now that demolition is complete and now that approval has been received for moving forward from the National Park Service. So again, this is what the building looks like today, minus the demolition chutes that have been removed from the outside of the structure now. And then here's a view of what the building would look like upon completion of the project. You look at this building today, and you may shrug your shoulders and not see much. But if you look at this rendering of what the building will be when it's restored to its full character and glory, what a beautiful structure this was in downtown Peoria. And this is exactly the type of building that this council has been so deliberate about working to preserve and return to effective use for our community. So when we announced the project, as I said, in January of 2018, we thought we would have 600 to 800 employees. That number is really kind of landing right in the middle at about 700 employees. But the project costs have increased significantly, and we've gone to $89 million, now up to $127 million, mostly attributable to the costs of redeveloping a historic building. This is a terracotta facade building, which has become a very rare building material that is difficult to source, custom windows, and many other important features that are worth retaining, but historic preservation is an expensive undertaking, and I think it's showing in this project. And it's really the reason that we've created programs like this one to help support the execution of these buildings. In the meantime, the idea and the optimism and the excitement about playing a part in the transformation of downtown Peoria, continuing an exceptional vibrancy for our community, has continued to take greater hold. And as we all have discussed, there is now an additional opportunity to bring more OSF mission partners to downtown Peoria for additional administrative functions within the former Caterpillar LD building, which is located on the 300 block of Southwest Adams in between Illinois Mutual and the former Cohen Furniture building. This is another exciting opportunity to bring even more people downtown. And so instead of solving for 700 people downtown and benefiting from the economic impact that would come from those type of people, now we're in a situation where we expect to have 1,200 people working downtown as part of this new investment moving forward for our community. So OSF could not be more excited to be a part of the continued momentum and progress for downtown Peoria, being a great partner for the City Council and following the lead that has been set around this horseshoe. And we've always said it will come back to solving, as we often have to do for opportunities downtown, the parking dilemma. And so working together to figure out how will we park 1,200 people in downtown Peoria now moving forward is a really good problem to have. And thanks to the leadership of this council, a great problem to solve. I'll stop there and turn it over to City Manager Urich. And Mr. Manager, thank you for all of your leadership on this project and your ability to help move this forward.
Starts to outline the redevelopment agreement. We just need to clean up the motion here. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to withdraw my motion. There's maybe an apparent conflict, so I won't be able to be, I would have to abstain.
Okay. So Councilman Riggenbach will move into the maker of the motion, and Councilman Turner will be the second, Madam Clerk. So, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank Representative Spain for his leadership on this project. I think this was new territory for me in actually negotiating with Mr. Spain as in his capacity at OSF. A lot of emails went back and forth as we were trying to work through this agreement. As Representative Spain mentioned, there's 1,200 parking spaces that we have to try and accommodate for, in addition to the redevelopment of the Block and Cool building and that project. And we have tried to incorporate all of that into the redevelopment agreement that you have in front of you. Ultimately, I think the issues, as we can kind of summarize them, is that this redevelopment agreement lays out for you how we're going to handle the parking, how we're going to also handle the redevelopment of the block itself, and then we leave open the question of future development on the rest of the block. First and foremost, the agreement outlines that this project and the site that we're talking about is simply the Block and Cool building and the parking structure that is adjacent to it. That is all in one property parcel. That's what we're dealing with initially. We have agreed, in addition to that we would reimburse the developer, or the redeveloper, excuse me, which is OSF. We would reimburse them 100% of their realized property tax eligible redevelopment costs. 100% of that would be reimbursed for the period of time while they may be paying property taxes on the agreement or on the building itself. That looks to be probably about 7 years. Currently, the base EAV, this is not in the redevelopment agreement, but this is for your background and edification. Currently, the base EAV on that property is $1.3 million. So if we assume that even if that property were to go up to the full, let's say it was a $20 million assessed value after that was put on the tax rolls by the township assessor. The city has no part to play in that other than sharing with them what the building permits are pulled and what the construction activities are going to go on there. If it goes up to $20 million, over that 7-year period of time, we would be talking about a potential reimbursement of about $1.8 million a year, or roughly $12.6 million that would be reimbursed back to OSF. In the agreement, we identify that they have eligible redevelopment costs of the $127 million, of over at least $106 million of eligible redevelopment costs. So at most, the city would be reimbursing maybe 12% at a $20 million base EAV. So if that number is smaller, what it ultimately gets taxed at, that number would be smaller as well. In addition, as the representative said, we had to deal with the parking issues, and this is where it requires us to obtain title to the 450 spaces that Caterpillar owns as part of the One Technology deck currently. We would be purchasing that property from Caterpillar for $2 million. And then what we would see, though, is we would see revenue coming back from OSF that would allow us to offset that cost that the city would be incurring. The way that would work is that during construction, the agreement outlines that the city would receive $37.50 per parking space. That's roughly about 50% of the going rate. For all of their construction workers, I think it's estimated that there's 300, plus any new employees. If the virtual care center that would be occupying the LD building were to come online, they would be paying at that $37.50 per space per month that would come into the city. Once the final certificate of occupancy was issued on the Block and Cool building, the new ministry headquarters was established, then we would enter into a 20-year triple net lease with OSF for the parking deck. What that simply means is that any costs of insurance, any costs of maintenance, any costs of property taxes would be borne by OSF. Insurance and taxes, we would have to pay those costs and then be reimbursed by OSF for those costs. But then we would also receive a rent payment coming into the city for that. That amounts to about $230,000 a year, about $19,193 per month. So over the life of this 20-year agreement, the city would receive $4.6 million of revenue coming in. We would have no expense for any of the ongoing maintenance of the deck. That would be the responsibility of OSF, since they are leasing that facility from us for that period of time. So from a cash flow perspective, while we'll have the cost of the purchase of the facility from Caterpillar over the first 5 years beginning in 2020 through 2023. After that, this is simply revenue coming back into the city for the lease of that parking space. After 20 years, there's a clause in the agreement that allows for the parties to renegotiate for any future agreement that we would have on the parking situation. And then finally, I think that as we look at this, there is the aspect of, if we're accommodating 1,200 parking spaces, and there's 1,139 of which in the One Tech's deck, and of which 200 are currently occupied by people that work in the One Tech deck or work around that space. This is going to require overflow parking that's going to go out into the Niagara deck and the Jefferson deck. If they're using the full 1,200 as anticipated, this should fully take up all of the parking in both the One Technology deck, the Jefferson deck, and the Niagara deck. So in essence, we will be filling up all of those decks in downtown Peoria with this agreement. So, and I guess at this point in time, just mechanically, the agreement, there is the lease is attached as Exhibit 4.2 in the redevelopment agreement. In addition, we are requiring, as we do of TIF deals, that they comply with our equal opportunity clauses as part of our contract. They have already currently have exceeded, I think, the numbers that we have currently in our plan as part of the demolition work. So I think that that's something that OSF has shown that they're going to pursue with good faith. So that's all incorporated in the redevelopment agreement, and I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thank you for the summary, Mr. Manager. I'll just, maybe a couple brief comments if there are any questions. Thanks to the staff and also to Representative Spain and the OSF team, who have really done a very good job of communicating to the council over these months as this project has developed. But I think one of the important messages for the community is this project is real, and it is happening, and it really gives the community something to be very excited about. The decision could have been made for this building to be in a greenfield, which the sisters own plenty of that, but they really saw the value in continuing their investment, especially near and close to the downtown. And we thank the sisters very much for that. And from a lot of, as people are really understanding that it is happening, this really is here, it's really happening, and it's not only that, but it's going to be bigger than we anticipated it to at the beginning, with this potential for the LD building to be utilized as well. We're already getting quite a few inquiries on some of the other buildings in our downtown, and we really do expect this to expedite a lot of that downtown business and the renewed interest in our downtown buildings. So many times we don't take the time to acknowledge when there's good news and when there's something that is very positive for this community. I think just because of some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years, we've probably gotten ourselves in more of a protective position, and well, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I think after tonight's vote happens, they're going to start seeing it. So again, thanks to everyone that's worked on this, and especially thanks to the sisters and the rest of the folks, Representative Spain and the others at OSF. And don't forget, Caterpillar did play a part in this as well, and making the original deal happen, and also working with us on the LD building. So thanks to them. So we're open for questions or comments at this time. Anyone? Councilman Montalongo?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Representative Spain, for the thorough outlining of this, and thank you especially to the sisters for their commitment to downtown and their commitment to the needy in our community. There's just so many things that can be said about the impact this is going to have, but for those of us that work downtown, thinking of an additional 1,200 people walking the streets at lunchtime, that's got to just make a lot of the entrepreneurs and the restaurant owners and the opportunities are truly going to become multiplied in so many ways. I think this is just a tremendous opportunity at so many levels. We've talked for years about the excess parking we have in our parking decks, and to find a way to have this opportunity to remedy that, to cover the expenses of what we have to pay for that, and then some. Again, another really incredible aspect of this project. So I think we talk a lot and we hear a lot in the community about development projects. I think that this is an example of truly doing the due diligence, making sure the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and I will enthusiastically cast a yes vote for this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Turner?
Representative Spain, I don't want to say a lot. You have been just a complete asset to this whole project and making things work. So I second this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Councilman Rodrigo?
Thank you, Mayor. And, you know, you talk about this being known as the Big White Store. And I think that there may be a couple of postcards out there that were taken at night when this thing first opened. And one of the things that mantra sort of meant was not just during the day did this thing stand out, this building, but at nighttime, because of those windows, the lights would shine and you could see it from pretty well all of downtown Peoria. And it really was that beacon of what was available, and it drew you downtown. In that regard, is there anything that you can share maybe about, you know, what will happen on the block, or what you would foresee in the neighborhood, give it a couple of years once this progresses?
Thank you, Councilman Rodrigo. And I think that symbolism in the history and sort of being a beacon of light for the community at this location is exactly what we are all hoping to achieve through this redevelopment. And I think you see it starting to happen already. So just over a year ago, an announcement was made just about this singular building. And think about what's happened just in the last 12 months along the way. So the opportunity working in collaboration with the University of Illinois to develop a downtown innovation hub would be taking place catty corner from this development. Right down the block then, the opportunity working with the redesign and redevelopment of the Caterpillar LD building. And then not to mention, as Councilman Riggenbach said, just the tremendous infusion of economic activity with having 1,200 people, some of which operating on a 24/7 basis, can do for our community. And so it's an exceptional opportunity, I hope, I believe wholeheartedly for our community. And then, and as all of you know, we are continuing our discussions with the National Park Service to make sure that the remainder of the headquarters block itself can be repurposed and redeveloped at a later date. We've got a lot to work on right now, so we are certainly focused on the headquarters building itself, but making sure that the remainder of this block can serve additional amenities that will be to the benefit of OSF mission partners, downtown residents, other downtown daytime workforce, and beyond, and making sure that these are not just singular investments taking place in isolation, but a start of a continued transformation for downtown Peoria that continues to move forward.
And please take our appreciation back to the sisters and the full organization of OSF, because I think that, as you've heard from two of my other fellow council members here, that we definitely all appreciate the time and the energy put into this project.
Will do. They're watching and duly noted.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. I'm seeing no further lights or discussion. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. So last call for comments. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. I vote yes.
And pull the screen back up. That motion passes unanimously with one abstention. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
We're at unfinished business. 18-231 is a request to defer the purchase of the Cemental property located at the foot of Spring Street until May the 14th, 2019.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move for approval of the deferral.
Okay, motion to approve the deferral, seconded by Councilmember Turner. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
I vote yes.
And that motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we're still at unfinished business.
Unfinished business, Councilmember Moore. Old business, unfinished business. You don't want to... Okay.
Business. If you recall back on item 19116, I asked to be able to abstain from that. And that company, at our last meeting, there were 3 other contracts that company was involved with, 19104, 105, and 107. So I'd like to reconsider those for the purpose of being able to abstain from the vote, and then the vote be retaken.
Okay. So we're going to reconsider all 3 of those. Do you want them done individually?
Yes,
okay. So we have a motion to reconsider 19104 by Councilmember Moore, seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo.
I vote yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously with an abstention. We have a motion to reconsider 19105. Councilman Riggenbach, seconded Councilman Turner. 104. These were from 2 meetings ago. Councilmember Moore, there was identified a potential conflict of interest. So she didn't abstain then, so she wants to abstain, reconsider them, and then abstain. All we're doing is reconsidering it, so it'll come back. That we're not voting on it, we're just voting to reconsider.
Right,
correct.
Voting to reconsider.
Mr. Mayor, I have the titles of these if anyone would like to have them, but
Okay.
is that you want?
Okay, the one we voted on, 104.
Yeah. 104 is the request to approve contracts for the 2019 vacant lot mowing program, and the bids were Walton Service, P-Town Car Club, Hulse Lawn Care, Law and Order Academy, and Hearns Landscaping. That was approved unanimously. Mayor Artis and Councilmember Akerson were absent, so they.
So just for clarification, we're voting to reconsider these. We're not voting to approve them. So they're just going to come back for reconsideration on the next meeting. Councilwoman Akerson.
Could you explain what the conflict is? Rather than just stating there's a conflict. There was a conflict last time, and I'd like to know what the conflict is. And there's a conflict now. More description. I really would like to know what the conflict is. And every other time somebody has a conflict, it's described either ownership of property or a relationship with an employer or something.
As I said on 116 this evening, that at that time, I have a relationship with this company. They are a donor to a nonprofit. So it's the same thing for all 3. Same thing as 116.
This is kind of a point of order. We went through this before, and we had lots of discussion about conflicts of interest. And I think that it was decided that if you have a donation, it's not a conflict. At least that's the way it was when the water company issue came about. But I mean, it just seems like it should be consistent.
Agree with that.
Mr. Leist?
The decision to abstain from an item is a personal decision of the city council member or the elected official involved. At this time, I was advised by Councilmember Moore that she believed that she could perhaps have a common law conflict and thus would be required to abstain. So this vote is just relative to the reconsideration, and of course, when the initial vote comes, or actually the revote comes about, Ms. Moore would have a duty then to define the nature of her conflict, which is her right to do. But there is no general rule. It's dependent upon the facts and the case and the conscience and the opinion of the city council member that is crucial.
So we're on 19-105, which is?
It's the request to approve contracts for the 2019 Facilities, Boulevards, and Rights-of-Way Mowing Program. And the contracts went to All-in-One Restoration, Jimax, Walton Service, and Hearns Landscaping.
Okay. And we have a motion to reconsider. Councilman Riggenbach, seconded Councilman Turner. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Montalongo?
I vote yes.
The motion passes unanimously with one abstention. And, pardon me? Okay. Madam Clerk, we're on 14-107.
Yes, that is a request to approve a contract with Jimax for tree stump removal and tree and brush trimming, not to exceed $170,000, and also to approve a contract with Jimax for emergency tree and brush trimming, not to exceed $30,000. And do these items, are they supposed to be coming back on May the 14th to be placed on that agenda? Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion to reconsider. Councilman Riggenbach, seconded Councilman Turner. Please cast your ballots. Councilman Montalongo?
I vote yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with one abstention. Thank you. Further unfinished business, Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a follow-up for an item I asked about, I don't know, a month or two ago, about coming back with some information about doing a registry for people with Ring doorbells and other things similar to the ordinance that they did in Springfield about 2 months ago. So I'm just asking the city manager if that's still on, make sure it's still on his to-do list. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Akeson?
Thank you. At the last meeting, 2 weeks ago, but 2 weeks before that, City Manager, you said that there'd be a Fitch study report coming forward, and I haven't seen it. And I would like to get a copy of that before it's not appropriate for a citizen to be requesting a copy. It was supposed to be within 2 weeks.
We will make sure that we get the report as quickly as we can from them. So yes.
Any further new business or old business, unfinished business? Councilwoman Akeson?
I've got a follow-up. So why are we not getting the report that you said would be no problem within 2 weeks?
I'll call them in the morning and I'll let you know what they have to say as to why we don't have it on our desk. So they were supposed to have it.
Thank you.
Further unfinished business, unfinished.
Sure.
Councilman Montalongo?
Thank you, Mayor. one more for the city manager, also making a request for the stormwater utility reconciliation report. I brought this up a couple of times in our over the last couple months. Just wanting to get an account of monies collected. I believe back in 2017, about that time frame, Public Works Director described there being 400 something projects that needed to be completed, and I think a value of over $15 million. And just, I think not just for me, but for the public to understand the money that's being collected and being paid and projects that are being completed, I think would be very helpful to everybody. It's still a big question that comes up at many of the neighborhood association meetings that I attend. Let's see what else. I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights for unfinished business, Madam Clerk.
We would be at new business.
New business to come before the council tonight. New business, Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was chomping at the bit over here because I am so excited about what OSF is bringing to the downtown that I don't know if they even realize the extent to which they have become the anchor tenant, if you will, in the downtown area. That 1,200 people, new people coming to this area, it's not only a good thing for OSF, and for the buildings that are sitting there idle and for parking spaces that were not being used. But this is a shot in the arm to all of the businesses that have been in that area, who have held on for a long time, who were struggling, wondering if they were going to be able to survive another year. And now this gives them hope that they will be able to do all that. And that is outstanding. And we just passed a local holiday recently, a national holiday, and I just want to say how thankful I am to the sisters that they saw that this was an area that could not only service their need, but also be in service to those who live in that community. I was in a meeting yesterday where someone indicated at any given time there are 1,000 healthcare related jobs open in our community. And not just, when you say healthcare, people think of doctors and nurses and emergency services folks, but you're talking about people who are clerks and people who run the stores there, and the volunteers who help people to their rooms and to their cars, and it's just going to be phenomenal. This opens up the opportunity for additional for a drugstore to come into the area, sandwich shops, doctors' offices. I would really like to see us get behind the wayfinding signs that we've been talking about on this council for I don't know how long. With 1,200 new people coming to the downtown, absolutely wayfinding signs should be a priority. Just all the additional restaurants, we can call up Kelleher's and Sugar and ask them, what other concept do you have? Because we're going to need those downtown. And, we've got Adams Street Cafe across the street. I'm sure they're going to love this coming. And I just wanted to thank the sisters, thank Ryan Spain. He's been a great friend to this council, to this city, and to myself. And I can't be more happy about what's happening now if you tried. So thank you all thank you to the sisters, thank you to Ryan, thank you to everyone who had a hand in making the decision to bring this to the downtown, because this is the exact shot in the arm that we needed. And a few years from now, we're going to wonder how we survive without them. So thank you once again to OSF.
Riggenbach.
We are hearing a lot of good news tonight, and when we talk about the grocery store issue, there hasn't been a lot of good news, but in the East Bluff, Tienda Mexicana is in the process of doing an expansion and really increasing their footprint up there as well. And for those of you that are familiar with it, it's a wonderful Mexican grocery store and a very small, tight quarters right now. Well, they've been able to get site control of another property or in the process of opening it. Still waiting for a certificate of occupancy, I understand, and some of that bureaucratic red tape, as they say, but there is some good news on the horizon for those grocery shoppers in the East Bluff, so I want to make sure that once that is open officially, that all the residents are aware of it and that we support our local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further new business this evening? New business? I'm seeing none. Madam Clerk?
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council.
Citizens to address, we would just ask for your name for the record, and we have a 5-minute speaking limit. Up first is Josh Witkowski.
Thank you, Mayor Artis, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Josh Witkowski. I am the state legislative coordinator for Abate, Illinois, and I am here on their behalf tonight. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the proclamation earlier acknowledging Motorcycle Safety Month, which is the month of May. Peoria has a very unique place in motorcycle history within the community. You have the great views up and down the Illinois River. You have the Peoria TT. You've got several local chapters of Abate. You have a vibrant motorcycle club community, which results in the Bikers Against Street Hunger Rally every year, which is one of the largest charitable events in the Midwest. You also have a unique role in safety, which was a big part of that proclamation. Illinois Central College is a part of the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. They actually teach and oversee the instruction of motorcycle safety classes throughout the mid part of Illinois. Unfortunately, I'm here tonight to discuss with you a road user that is unsafe and will not share the road with motorcycles well and has no interest in sharing the road with motorcycles well, contrary to the proclamation that was just given earlier tonight. Talking about autonomous vehicles, driverless cars. Recently, the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission gave support through a letter to the Department of Transportation for a pilot program to be done here in Peoria on Peoria city streets in the month of June. Mayor Artis was promoting this very same program a couple weeks ago on local television. The DOT proposed project is for level 3 through 5 autonomy, which means no driver present or driver present while vehicle is driving itself. Real quick, the regulations on that. Federal DOT has no regulations on this. They have guidelines, but no regulations. If it is a commercially available vehicle, slap a sensor on it, bam, you've got yourself a driverless car. There's nothing. State of Illinois has even less. They have an executive order from Governor Ronner that says if you send a letter to IDOT, boom, you're in business. That's all you have to do. Nobody overlooks these things at all. For those that think that this may be a safe thing for our roadways, I was at a symposium in June of last year that said the autonomous vehicle systems being tested, 165,000 miles in between fatal incidents. Human drivers, about 86 million. In other words, an autonomous system is 500 times more likely to have a fatal incident when you gauge it by a per mile basis. A company called Dynamic Research checked autonomous vehicle forward collision warning systems against motorcycles in a test with an 800cc motorcycle directly in front of 8 different vehicles. The test was whether or not it'd see that motorcycle 5 of 7 times. 6 of the vehicles tested failed to see that motorcycle the 5 of 7 times. Only 1 vehicle saw it 7 of 7 times. This is a very huge problem for us. Yet companies continue to push for on-road testing. There are very serious limitations in the technology of LiDAR and cameras to be able to detect motion and to be able to detect smaller road users, such as motorcycles, pedestrians, bicyclists. If you need proof of this, you only need to look at what happened in Arizona, where a pedestrian carrying a bicycle was hit by an Uber autonomous vehicle and killed. By the way, that system, same regulatory rules as what apply in Illinois right now. Uber took their 7 sensors, reduced it down to 1, and 2 weeks later had a fatal incident. NTSB said that Uber was partly at fault, but those findings were not adopted by NHTSA. Bottom line here is the physical on-road testing is shown not to be sufficient. Ford admits that they will need billions of miles driven before they can approximate human technology or human thought and movement with these systems. Rand Corporation, defense contractor, recommends virtual simulation. In Michigan, you have off-site systems. You have the STAR campus. You have M-City. These are huge 100-acre campuses designed for this kind of testing. instead of making the public the field test for this. Bottom line is, our lives are not a field test for unproven technology, and there are significant issues with this technology. So I am here to ask that the City Council draft a letter to the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission asking them to withdraw their support of this dangerous project. And I would hope that you would take this under advisement and go along with this, because we do not need an unproven vehicle out there, especially a vehicle you or I have to go through vision testing, road testing. These, nothing. One last thing I'll leave you with. DOT thinks that this is safe as long as there's a human driver behind the wheel that's shadowing what the autonomous system is doing. But there is a delay in that. There is a delay from the time that that safety driver realizes that the system isn't working. At 35 miles an hour on the speed downtown, 1 second delay is 50 feet travel. In other words, that's right through the intersection. If it failed to detect that red light, where the safety driver failed to detect that the autonomous system was not seeing the red light. Crosswalks and crosswalks.
Mr. Witkowski, the timer expired, just so you know. You don't have any amplification right now. Thank you. Next, we have Molly Cadigan.
Council members, several months ago, I got multiple postcards in the mail requesting my vote for most of the council members. What impressed me the most is the 4 council members who were endorsed by the Sierra Club, which I'm a member of. So my question to those council members who were endorsed, I'd really like to know what you're going to plan to do to clean up the city of Peoria. I know downtown looks really nice and we're trying to get businesses to come in, but I live in the 61606 zip code, which is the most heavily populated zip code in Peoria. It is also the second dirtiest area. And frankly, from Bradley University at the corner of the Uplands at Parkside Drive, from there down to probably Comfort Boulevard, Main Street is horrific. There is trash all over the road, and I'm not just talking litter trash thrown out of cars. I'm talking condoms, diapers, needles. Something's got to be done about this. I walk my dog 5 miles a day, and I pick up most of this stuff, but I'm 70 years old, and I'm not going to be in the shape to pick up this stuff much longer. So I would propose that my sort of ultimate dream is that the city council would hire a collection agency to collect on some, even 10% of the millions of dollars in unpaid littering tickets that this city now has. And secondly, to do a real educational system so that when the glossy postcards are sent out about why it's important to keep your neighborhood clean, which I appreciate, but at the very top of that list should be it's against the law to litter. I have a really wonderful code enforcement person, but because his hours have been cut back and most of the code enforcement people's hours have been cut back, he's falling way behind in the calls that he has to respond to. And I can tell you, his name is Nick, and he responds to every single call that our neighborhood association has given him. I would also suggest, and I can't remember the woman's name, but she used to be the code enforcement person on the south side, who actually had people who had to do community service. And she actually had those community service people on her payroll, as it were, and she would actually have them come into my neighborhood to pick up litter. So I would propose that one of the things that code enforcement would be allowed to do is that every code enforcement officer could have at his disposal people who are required to do community service, and that they could go into residential neighborhoods and start picking up trash on a daily basis. And I guess that's about all I have. I would just ask you to really think about this, because in light of the fact that OSF is going to have 1,200 people moving into downtown, well, that's all well and good, because the downtown area around the courthouse is always neat and clean, pretty much. But up for the rest of the area, it isn't. If you talk about I would love to see business. I'd love to see 1,200 people. But as an environmentalist, all I'm seeing is more pollution to the waterways and more litter. And I would hope to God that that isn't true. But what I see on a daily basis is even high-functioning people walking down the street when I'm walking my dog who look at trash on the street and just step over it. If every single person that lives in the city would pick up one piece of trash every day, and that includes all of you council members, we wouldn't have a litter problem. And I just moved back to this area 4.5 years ago, but I lived here in the 70s. And I lived on Roanoke, and it was not anywhere near as bad as it is now. And I've heard all the excuses about people don't know any better. Well, the way to get people to know better is to educate them. And I think at some point in time we have to stop being so passive about it is an ordinance, it's against the law to litter, and people have to be held accountable for their actions. If you do the crime, you do the time. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Next, we have Rachel O'Reilly.
O'Reilly, thanks for letting me speak. I wasn't going to comment on this issue, but I really can't be quiet about it. Ms. Atkinson isn't here as it's directed to her. Advocating against solar energy because it's an eyesore is foolish at best. We have 12 years, according to an international study. We're at a precipice. We are at a crisis. Carbon emissions need to be reduced by 45%. In addition, there needs to be technology to remove carbon emissions from our air. But United States had carbon emissions up 3%. Nuclear energy is not viable. It has radioactive waste. It is buried in the ground. And as our climate warms, cataclysmic events are going to become more commonplace. So if an earthquake happens, all that radioactive is going to go straight in our water. So I would strongly encourage you to advocate for solar and wind, not nuclear, for all of our futures. But I'm not here for that. I'm here once again for Alexis Camry Scott, trying to get people to search for her, Alexis Camry Scott, on Facebook. If you inbox the Dusty, the coordinator, the organizer, for your availability, if enough people have matching availabilities, say if some people can search during the weekdays where others might have weekends, if enough people have matching availabilities, we can have pop-up searches. It's really important that we have the community's support. If it were one of your loved ones, would you not want to search everywhere? Would you not want the community helping you? If we have a lot of people helping, that they can go really, really quickly, and the areas that we have, the suspect areas, it's not for nothing, because Alexis's mother, can have some kind of can be consoled knowing that where the community is searching, Alexis is not. So it eliminates possibilities of where she could be. If you're not able, those listening on the radio, if you're not able to physically do a search, please consider donating. Alexis has a toddler son that the donations could go to. Also, if the Peoria Police Department is underfunded and they have many cases, then we could get a private investigator that can devote all their time to Alexis and finding Alexis. I'm also really, really disappointed in the quote-unquote liberals and progressives of this area. I've reached out to ACLU, and their social media page is silent. I think it's great that they can get a large number of people to protest immigration issues. I'm pro-immigration also, but imagine if we can get those same number of people showing up to a protest to search for Alexis. Indivisible of Peoria, they advocate, they have protests at the federal courthouse for Medicare, a progressive tax, which are all great things to be advocating for. But why are those people not searching for Alexis? If you can show up to the federal courthouse and protest for an hour? Why can you not show up at a search for an hour? When I posted this question and asked for help on the Peoria Indivisible group, closed group page, my request was taken down. Shame on one of those 4 admins that silenced a call for help for a missing local girl. So I'm really, really frustrated, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I really hope that those that deem themselves humanitarians, once again, put their actions where their mouths are. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk,
We do not have an executive session, so we would be at adjournment.
motion to adjourn by Councilman Sear, seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Please cast your ballots. Councilman Montalongo?
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.